Hello, everybody in YouTube land. This is Professor DiMaggio's Gaming. I am going to be doing part one now in a two-part guide for how to deal with turtling players. So hopefully this is useful. I'm going to be looking in video one particularly at a couple different play styles that are turtling. One is people who largely do run away and constantly try to avoid you. And the other is people who rely heavily on crouch to try and protect against low attacks. And part of dealing with people who crouch a lot is they also end up doing a lot of delayed throw text spamming. That's something I'm going to talk about in the second video. But yeah, look forward in this video to a couple of the most notorious ways in which people turtle, and hopefully this information is helpful. There's this sort of common perception that this is a very bad play style, that it's really annoying to play against, that it's really frustrating. What are we really talking about here? You know, opponents who are constantly jumping back and hitting an attack button to try and stay away from any of your attacks, constantly walking back to try and avoid any sort of neutral play and to avoid any sort of chance of getting hit by you, by anything really. People who are not just walking back and staying out of attack range and out of neutral range, but trying to snipe at you in the process of you chasing after them. And also a lot of this jump back, kicking, and attacking stuff. So, you know, that's sort of a basic, straightforward definition of turtling. My personal view of turtling is largely agreeing with people in general who find this really frustrating. I personally think this is as close as you can get to forfeiting a match without actually forfeiting. Um, if you think about it, it's so self-defeating in a fighting game. You're playing a fighting game, but you don't want to fight. You're playing a fighting game, but you're running away from fighting the other person. It's almost too stupid to think about for a minute, but then you realize that that's not quite totally true, because they do want to fight, but they want to fight you on their own terms, in terms of staying out of your range and having the freedom to engage you whenever they want. So why would you do that? Why would you play a fighting game like this? Because fighting games are meant to be, people are meant to engage with each other. Well, they are engaging with you, just in a way that people don't really want. They want a straight up sort of fight where people go back and forth. But the reason why people do this, to be perfectly blunt, is because up to a certain point it works. It's, for lack of a better way of putting this, it's basically a shortcut that helps people who aren't very good at games. They're, for lack of a better term, they're underskilled at the game they're playing, and they want to climb rank or whatever. And in this case, they want to punch above their rank. So people have used it, and they still do it because it gets results, even if it's really obnoxious, and it allows people to sort of fight at a higher level than they really have the skill to do or have any business doing, because of the advantage that this particular play style gives you. Okay, so why would I say that? Why would I say that turtling in the form that I described, of constantly jumping back, running away, staying out of neutral range or contact range, jump back and kick, why is it that way? Well, I've got experience with this, actually. You know, I played a lot of fighting games in the 1990s, and I wouldn't say I was a turtling player back then. I played games like Killer Instinct, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3, hundreds of hours of these games when I was an early teenager. Then I got back to playing fighting games in the 2000s, and when I was in college, I had a friend who was really into Smash Brothers Melee for the GameCube. And he was just really, really good at the game, and I couldn't compete with him. I just couldn't stand toe to toe with him. He was just too good, but he wanted to play the game a lot. So what I ended up doing, and I didn't even know what it was called back then, we didn't have names for this stuff, but it was turtling. And he would get really frustrated and really annoyed because I'd be constantly running away from him and Smash Brothers, hit and move, stick and move, guerrilla warfare style of tactics, and it's really obnoxious in Smash Brothers. You can pick up all types of items and weapons and attack people as well from a far distance. So I used to get really pissed. Then I came back to fighting games in the 2020s, and the first real game I played with any sort of seriousness was MK11. And I had a friend, Scribe, that I played this game with quite a bit, a couple of times a week. And he would get really frustrated too, because, you know, I would do a lot of this turtling stuff. Well, I really didn't know how to play these games. And so in that sense, you know, turtling helped me in the case of MK11. I was trying to play across like 14 different characters and get a sense of which ones I really liked. And I had labbed out combos for all of these 14 characters. And so, if funny or not, a lot of the time when I was sort of staying away from him and moving back and staying back in that game and in DNF Duel, which we used to play, it's because I was trying to look at my combo sheet and look at the combos that I was doing. And I couldn't remember them all for all the characters I was playing for each game. I'd be playing a half dozen characters in DNF Duel. I'd be playing more than a dozen MK11. The reason why being so authoritative about this is because I know where this logic comes from. Turtling like this is a tactic people use who aren't very good at games to try and give themselves space and have more freedom to not worry about getting flustered by being attacked, and then they have the freedom to engage the other person however they want. So in order to get this video kicked off properly, we're going to take a look at some actual footage from someone I played recently who is sort of a notorious turtler. This person, as you can see on the screen, Piccolo, I don't know them personally, but I just ran into them in matches. It's a modern Kimberly. And so I'm going to have sort of the matches with this person playing in the background, and you can see a lot of the stuff that I was describing, them actually doing this stuff. So this is a player who, I guess, there's no other nice way to say this, they're using modern controls as a crutch, in the sense that you notice them consistently walking back throughout the match and then rushing forward to try and snipe people. They're walking back repeatedly over and over, always outside of the neutral territory to minimize the amount of exposure and danger to them getting hit. And then you've got the drive rush and rushing forward with sweep and other hits to try and snipe at people as they come after them. When this player gets in trouble, numerous times throughout the clips, you'll see that they end up using their level 1 super to try and get out of the corner. And that's really easy to do with modern controls because you just push a button and you've got the one button supers. So what I said by using it as a crutch, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. They're taking the strongest elements of modern controls and they're using it as a crutch in the sense that it's allowing this player to not have to worry about actually the fundamentals of what makes somebody good at Street Fighter if you want to climb actual rank above 1500 MR. So this person ends up getting sort of hard stuck, a player like this between 13, 14, 1500 MR, because they don't have basic fundamentals. They don't have the ability to play neutral and actually do real anti-airs in neutral, right? Perfect parry somebody. So using things like anti-airs, all the other things that you're expected to do in neutral. Now, I don't want to necessarily like judge a player. Someone might be perfectly happy playing a turtling play style and not worrying about MR rank. There's different ways to play the game and different ways to enjoy it, and there's no right or wrong way as far as I'm concerned to enjoy a game like this. But the points that I'm making are simply related to what people commonly think of as progress in this game after getting master rank. The idea that you're comparing yourself to other master players. And the only way to really do that is to, at some point throughout the process, play some ranked. So if you're interested, if you're interested in that process, some people might just want to do custom battles and casual matches and battle hub. There's nothing wrong with that either. But if you're interested in actually comparing yourself in terms of skill level, that's what the MR ranking is for and ratings. So yeah, that kind of gameplay, that kind of play between different types of neutral, anti-airs, perfect parries, whiff punishing, and so on. That stuff, this is sort of arrested development. You're not really learning how to do that kind of play that people who are advanced at this game actually do, and that you need to be able to do that play style in order to sort of make progress. So yeah, you can basically see it's a good sort of recipe for getting hard stuck because you haven't learned these fundamentals, but it's also hard to beat because of the constant running back and the guerrilla warfare tactics and hit and run. And again, this is what weaker opponents do to defeat people who are stronger at a game than themselves. So why does that make sense? It does actually make sense in some situations to be a turtling type player. Like I said earlier when I was talking about Smash Brothers and returning to modern fighting games, if you're a beginner player, it is actually a really good strategy to turtle because it helps you simplify the game when you're learning how to play the game. And so the idea of like getting comfortable in your own skin in the game and being able to do combos and figuring that out and doing it sort of at your own pace, having some space between you and the other player actually helps doing that. So I don't want to say there's anything wrong with turtling, but it's really a tactic that's better suited for people who are learning these games, in my opinion. And when you get to something that's like, a master rank, what you don't want to be doing if you want to be actually improving at the game is, um, you know, using things like modern controls as a crutch for not being able to learn basic fundamentals of the game and basic defense. Now, you might say, oh, wasn't this person playing defense? You see them doing anti-airs with the modern controls and in general. Well, yeah, but it's not really an impressive accomplishment to be able to play defense from three quarters to full screen because anything that the person is going to do, you can see coming a mile away. Like there's no real reaction times there in terms of developing an actual skill set if you're playing up close with somebody or in the neutral. So yeah, it's not exactly like you're developing strong skills there that are going to help you when it comes to wanting to actually play at a higher level and against other mastered players. So when else does it make sense to do turtling? I think it also makes a lot of sense if you're dealing with bruiser and grappler players, as I've talked about with Marissa and Zangief. I'm not saying you should be totally out of the neutral territory, but you should really be going in and out of that neutral territory, and probably much more often than not, staying just outside of the neutral territory so you don't get clipped by some of these big bruiser hits from Marissa in this game, or get scooped up over and over by Zangief and his SPDs and other throws. So I think that there are certain situations where it does make sense for a turtling strategy if the actual player design, like Zangief and Marissa, makes them so much stronger that to stand exactly toe to toe is going to be a huge disadvantage for your character, like a Rashid. Or if you're a new player, I think that these things both make sense. So what we're also going to be doing here then is we're going to be looking at how to beat this. The conventional answer that I've heard content creators give is that, oh, you just walk these people down slowly, walk forward a little bit, block, walk forward a little bit, block, and you walk them down. And if they're walking back, they're walking themselves to the corner. This is much easier said than done, this strategy, because what's really going on is the danger of actually sniping. If they were just doing a little bit of turtling, and just a little bit of walking back and staying out of range and then engaging with you like a normal player would, it wouldn't really be a big deal. But the fact that the sniping strategy that this player is employing as part of it means that you actually are neutral skipping. That will, at least that's what the turtler is doing. Between all the backdashing, um, running back, and then running forward and doing strikes out of nowhere, like that's the whole point. That's the advantage of the strategy. It keeps you far away, stops you from getting hit, but it allows you to close that neutral territory whenever you want as a turtler. And so, that's a real challenge when you talk about how to actually beat this. Um, so there are a number of ways that you can do this, but I don't actually recommend that strategy for people who are trying to deal with turtles. This idea of slowly walking them back, because what you're doing is you are spending your emotional, physical, and mental energy chasing after this person rather than playing offense or defense on your own part. You're just chasing them the whole time, and that's problematic. They have neutral space to play with, but you don't because of the sniping. So this means that for you to win, you're actually going into this situation with one hand behind your back, tied behind your back, if you don't have neutral space to protect you, and they do because of sniping. You are at a systematic disadvantage. So for you to be able to beat a player who is not as skilled at you and couldn't actually stand toe to toe, you not only have to be better than them because of this turtling strategy, you have to be, in my opinion, a lot better than them to be able to walk them down and defend against this sniping and have any kind of functional offense and defense on top of that. That is a really big mental stack to be able to do all of that, plus all the other system mechanics in this game. And that's just a really difficult thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk people through some actual responses that I think are realistic for players who are dealing with this and who aren't at that top elite level where they can just walk somebody down and get away with that and win. Okay, so we're going to look at an actual match. I ran into this player. This is the reason why I picked them, this Piccolo player, whoever they are. It doesn't matter who they are. It just matters the play style, right? It's perfect for this video. And, there's just two ways to basically you can try to do this. One is that you can just sort of wait in the neutral territory. If they're just going to keep walking back, just say, I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to spend my mental and physical and emotional energy chasing after you and getting frustrated and chasing after you only to get hit and sniped rather than be able to run an offense or a defense. You could just sit there and not play that game. If it's a guile doing it and they want to spam fireballs and hide in the corner, just keep parrying them. This is what my friend Scribe used to do when we would play games, and I would do the turtling. He'd say, "I'm just going to wait here. When you've decided that you want to play, you can come up to me and we'll actually fight." In order for that to be an effective strategy, and I'm not sure that I recommend that primarily as the strategy here because you're sort of forfeiting the round too. You have to be really, really strong, not just in neutral, but on defense and on point in every way that somebody could run at you and try and snipe you and hit you. So if you're going to wait in neutral, you have to be able to not only parry fireballs and maybe perfect parry and shut those down, but you have to be able to consistently check the drive rushes when they come at you. Perfect parry, anti-air, counter DI, and that's actually really tough to do. It's certainly something that you can drill and train, and I do recommend people do that to get better defensively. But that's an incredible amount of work to have to expend just to be able to beat a turtling player who is using system mechanics like modern controls or not, and sniping and using neutral to their own advantage, and then closing that distance instantly with you. That's an awful lot of skills that you will need to develop to just stand there and wait for them to come play you. You should be a really, really, really strong defensive player for this strategy to work effectively and consistently. Instead, I would recommend another strategy. Um, if the player is only doing a little bit of turtling, they're sort of moderately turtling, they're walking back a decent amount, but they are engaging with you. They're just sort of staying out of range sometimes and then re-engaging. I do think it makes sense to actually, sort of try and walk them down, do a little walking at a time and blocking, because they're not like an egregious turtle like this person we're looking at in the video with this play style. What you want to do with somebody like this is you want to take away the advantage. Their advantage is that they are maintaining this neutral territory and then some against you, and then they have the power to completely skip that neutral as they snipe at you. So what you should do as a Rashid player, or really as any player, is you need to find the moves and the skills that your player has to skip that neutral and instantly be upon them when they're walking back. So we're going to take a look at sort of what that looks like here. So it was pretty obvious to me from the beginning of this match, right about there, that this was a turtler. When somebody immediately starts walking back like that, Kimberly's in general are sort of notorious for this and then running forward and sliding, that YOLO style, but it's also turtling. I knew instantly what I was dealing with, because usually when I start a match, I'll start by crouching, holding down and back, because I want to see what the person's going to do first. I might throw a fireball just to sort of have something out there and see how they react. And I knew instantly once this person started walking back like this that they were turtling. So you really got to make the decision sort of that fast. And I thought, well, okay, so how do you neutral skip then? I said, okay, I'm going to do an EX shot, and I'm going to instantly jump in, and boom. Before you know it, as you can see here, before you know it, there is no more neutral for this person. They've got the EX shot, they've got to block it if they don't jump, and I jump in and I'm already on them. So you've taken away that whole advantage of sniping, the ability of them to attack you while you're walking forward by completely skipping that neutral. Why should you respect that neutral territory when this person doesn't respect it for you? So if they're going to play in that way, then they shouldn't have the benefit of that neutral either, and you need to find the particular moves, moves here that allow you to skip that neutral. So as you can see in my case, once I was on them, I didn't let up the pressure. You've got the target combo into other pressure into a throw. You've got more pressure after the throw. Basically running my offense with seamlessly with all different types of meaties that if they push a button on wake up, they're going to get hit. And you don't let them breathe. You've got them in the corner. Now there's nowhere for them to go, and they can't breathe. So all that entire strategy of turtling and having that neutral space to exploit so that you can get hit on as you walk toward them, that's all gone now. Once you've put them to the corner and you've actually done that in a way where you've instantly skipped neutral, in my case, through the EX whirlwind shot and then the jump forward. So you got to be careful there. You want to make sure, if you're doing that, that they actually block the whirlwind shot and don't jump, because if you meet in the air, that could be trouble for you. But most of the time, they're going to block that shot because it comes real fast, and then you can jump forward, and then you've got instant pressure after that, as you can see here. Okay, so we're going to stop picking on Piccolo here. Stop being so unfair to this one player. There's just one person, right? We're going to look at some other matches where I ran into people who were using a turtling style too. This is an Akuma, And what this person's doing is they just want to hang back and zone and throw fireballs. Well, yeah, of course, that's the archetype for these Shoto characters, right? But one thing you can do here, this is another way you can just immediately skip neutral, another tactic. If they want to throw all those fireballs all day long, just let them throw two or three or four, and then just run forward preemptively, assuming they're going to do another one. You got to sort of make a guess, right? You can do things like the slide punches into any kind of super if you have it, a level 1 or a level 3. So this is one of the ways that you can skip neutral on somebody, instantly be upon them. In the case of people who are spamming fireballs, or even people who are maybe walking forward at you, and you can run at them in that situation too. Another really good tactic is that you can jump back a little bit. Now I'm not doing that in this video, but usually what I'll do if I want to get instant pressure on them and close the neutral territory immediately on them, is I'll do like a jump or dash back at the beginning of the round, particularly if I know it's a turtle, and I will do the EX Cyclone, as you can see here. I'll do the EX Cyclone, and then instantly after that, it's just so fast because you've got that wind buff. You go right into the light mixer, and I can't tell you how many times I've hit people with the enhanced light mixer because they see the EX Cyclone, and usually they don't get hit by it because you dash back at the very beginning of the round, and then you instantly go into that light mixer, and it closes ground so fast that people just aren't ready for it. So this is an easy way you can get some free damage on somebody who's turtling right away. You can, and then you've pushed them to the corner already, right? So you've gotten rid of that neutral territory instantly because Rashid has this kind of toolkit where he has these kinds of moves like the EX Cyclone into the enhanced light mixer. Okay, moving on. So what are some other examples of how to close that distance with somebody who's turtling full screen while they're trying to zone or they're trying to keep you away? Ed does that with his fireballs too. Sometimes people like to turtle in that way, as this player's doing. You can try and close that distance by also doing an EX shot, and instead of jumping at them, you can do the cartwheel, and then you're right on their face, right? And with that pressure, it's actually really well timed with the cartwheel off of the EX shot, where you can either pressure with the target combo, medium punch into heavy kick, and do more pressure after, or you can do a throw, as I do here. What about the constant jump back turtlers? We'll see the Akuma here doing that. I don't know why people do that against Rashid. It's monumentally stupid, but if people are stupid enough to turtle like that with the constant jump back, especially when they see a level 2, you just kick it at them. Give them what they want, right? They want to jump in the air, let them jump in the air, right? And so this is another way to close that distance, right? To close that distance instantly, right? You pop that level 2, you get rid of that neutral territory. We have to worry about them sniping you with fireballs. You want to jump a million times? Go ahead. I'll kick it at you. I'll wait till you jump. Wait till they jump, right? So they don't land and block. Then you kick it, and then it's sort of game over there, right? You get a massive combo, right? So I kick this at him, and you're talking about, sort of eyeballing it here. The EX Mixer, the EX Sky High, the Heavy Mixer. What is that? That's like almost, probably 45% damage, almost half of their life bar they lost just because they wanted to jump turtle. Well, have at it. Have fun. And, that's free damage for you. Okay, we're going to look at some other types of turtling. As I mentioned, we were going to talk about turtlers who like to crouch a lot. Jokingly, I sometimes refer to these people as dipshit crouchers because they want to sit there the entire match and crouch. And some characters are just designed that way, like Guile. So you sort of understand, even if it's annoying, why somebody would be crouched a lot, because all of his specials come out of holding down and back. What do you expect the person to do? But in the case of this M. Bison, you don't have to be spending the entire match doing down, back, crouching. And so what people end up doing, it's really frustrating, this kind of turtling, where it's just constant crouching, or dipshit crouching, if you will, is they're protecting themselves against you hitting them with a low, and then they want you to come in, and they want you, if it's like a Ken or Ryu, they want you to jump so they can get a free DP. Or they might try and snipe at you with some other kind of hit or something, or just try and poke at you, right, like this M. Bison is doing. And so, yeah, you jump because you're not going to be able to hit them low, so maybe you'll try and hit them high, and then they do an anti-air, right? This is another kind of very frustrating turtling where they are staying close to you, but the way in which they're playing is extremely defensive and minimizing exposure, and they're using that pressure to push all types of buttons, but also crouch the whole time. And so, one way to sort of deal with that, as you can see right here, is for somebody who does an excessive amount of blocking and crouching, I like to just do a tick throw, and this will open them up. So if you don't know what a tick throw is, you do a drive rush on your fastest button. It could be with Rashid, a light punch, or a standing light kick, or a crouching light kick. And it's so fast, you don't actually expect it to hit. You expect them to block, right? Because with turtling, they're blocking this kind of turtling with the crouching. So and then you instantly do a throw after. So this is going to open the person up, as you can see here. That's your tick throw. Drive rush, standing, light kick into the throw. And then you can pressure them after that, right? You can sort of poke at them after the throw, after you've opened them up a little bit, trying to get them to push buttons, whiff punish them like I did there, right? Another throw maybe. This is a viable strategy for dealing with this. You see with this Cammy, she's doing a lot of the same thing when I mentioned dipshit crouching. Uh, constant like walking back and forth, but also just constant low blocking. Some of that makes sense because you're protecting yourself against lows. But if you're spending almost all of the match crouching like this, it can be very frustrating because how do you open this person up? Well, in this case, it's really the same thing with the tick throw. But in the case of Rashid, it makes more sense with the tick throw if you really want to open them up to drive rush, do your fast button and then throw, but do a reverse throw. Because if you do a reverse throw, they can't back rise and stay out of your way when it comes to getting your Oki. So if you do a reverse throw and you throw them in the other direction, you can then drive rush and push forward and heavy kick, and it's actually meaty. It's going to land and they're going to have to block and you're right in their face. So they can't have this sort of situation where they're keeping you at arm's length here and they're doing the constant crouching because you're upon them now. The tick throw allowed you to get in and do the throw. And then after that, the Oki, the drive rush forward and heavy kick, allowed you to keep the pressure going and get past this strategy. You can see that here. I did drive rush, tick throw, reverse the throw, drive rush forward heavy kick, another throw. I'm already in there. Or you can push buttons. If you're constantly crouching, you put yourself at risk for overheads. So it's not just tick throws that you can mess with these people who are constantly crouching and trying to keep you out and playing defense. You can also do an overhead. So here's a Luke I ran into, and they were doing a lot of this constant sort of turtling, crouching, block crouching. And so what you can do is you just give them a little bit of space, but this is another way to close the neutral ground instantly. You give them a little bit of space. So I'm having a hard time sort of breaking in, right? They're not only blocking the low, because I started with the drive rush crouching light kick, but I'm trying to get in with the light mixer. I'm trying to throw. They're teching the throw. What do you do when somebody plays like this? Fine. I step back a little bit. I do the charge shot. And what this does is it gives you an instant buff. You can drive rush after the charge shot when you're further away from them. And you can go for your overhead, like your drive rush, forward, and heavy punch. And so that's what I do here. And this person's going to get lit up for big damage because of the constant crouching, which I knew that they were doing during the match. And you just take advantage of that, right? You take them to the corner. You've closed the distance on neutral. You've taken advantage of the fact that they're crouching too much by relying on your overhead, and you've given yourself some protection to do that here. When you look at the fact that they can't hit you on pressure because what? Because you've got that charge shot. They have to block, right? They're going to block low, and you take advantage of that with the overhead drive rush. So you're already upon them, right? It's too late for them at that point because they're getting hit meaty with that overhead. And if they're blocking low, they're sort of finished. That's game over. You take them to the corner. Okay, there's another player here. This time it's a Ryu. Another type of turtling is when people like to endlessly and constantly neutral jump because they're thinking you're going to come at them. They're trying to avoid you that way by either jumping upwards or jumping back. It gets really freaking obnoxious because if you were neutral jumping because somebody was drive rushing, that's an actual reaction. So that's actually a skill to some extent. You don't want to be doing that all the time because it gets predictable. What people can do is they can just drive up to you and then do a DP, and you're in the air and you're at sort of you're ripe fruit for getting taken by that. So yeah, but I've seen people do this where anything you do, you could be pushing a button half a screen away, they jump. It's like a cat, the jittery cat who jumps 3 feet into the air anytime they see anything happen with movement. And so you could be walking toward them, you could be jumping, You could be drive rushing. You could be just pushing a button half a screen away. And, this is not real defense. This is turtling style defense. And so it gets really annoying. How do you actually deal with that? One thing that you can do is as you come toward them, right, and they do this constant jumping over and over as you're seeing with this person, is you can sort of try to run at them and try and bait them like I did there, right? And if you get really close, they might do something stupid like an EXDP that you could punish. Um, yeah, or you could sort of run up to them, like I said, and either drive rush or run up to them and try and do an anti-air as well. But basically, the name of the game here with people who are constantly jumping is you want to run up, you want to get in their face, either do an anti-air or try to bait them into pressing some kind of button or doing something stupid. And so you just sort of wait for them to come down and do something silly, or you hit them in the air with the end. So thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like or leave a comment or both. I want to stress that for this guide, there will be a part 2 in terms of dealing with delayed throw teching and people who spam on that as a form of turtling and excessive defense. But I want to finish this guide by saying that none of what I've been advocating here guarantees you a win. But it does give you a fighting chance, the neutral skip stuff, in terms of actually being able to fight a quote-unquote fair fight with somebody who's doing excessive turtling and running away and sniping. And it means that you're not going to be fighting with one hand tied behind your back because you're not allowing them to have a systematic advantage, a system mechanic in this case that they've created for themselves, which is taking the neutral space and using it just for themselves by keeping you out of that distance and then sniping at you. So hopefully that's helpful, and take or keep a lookout for the next video. We'll be looking at delayed throw tech. See you then.